you so much for being here. Isn't it wonderful to know that not only justice is possible, but that inside government agency there can be such will to make things better for us.
You're here.
I'm so glad I lived this long to see this. Shall
Do you want to talk a little bit about your film, Charlene, and then we'll open it up to questions?
Sure. I am from Winnipeg, and that's where I grew up. And my family is from York Factory First Nation. And my grandmother went to residential school, and so that sort of was a disconnect for our family. And we stayed in Winnipeg for a long time. I stayed the whole time, but my grandmother did not. And so with me staying in Winnipeg, I had the privilege of staying at home while also going to school. Meanwhile, my family, they didn't have that opportunity, and those kids had to leave home to go to school. And because I was so disconnected from that experience, and I knew it was happening, but I was disconnected from that, when I was working with Angelina McLeod, she's also a director, and I was doing sound for her, and she had shared her story. It really impacted me in a way that I hadn't realized before, in the sense that kids are leaving their homes and they're not with their communities, and it's sort of like another form of residential schools. And so we talked, and we felt like it would be a good idea to make this documentary in hopes that it could spread awareness through this one story. Because this isn't just one story, there's many stories. And I don't know if anybody has heard about the Thunder Bay crisis, but it's a Canadian problem, and I hope that makes sense.
Do we have any questions in the audience? Yes.
Wondering if you could elaborate on our friend Cindy Gladstock. I know for a fact that she was followed around much probably during the making of this film by CSIS. If you could elaborate for the people in the room about what happened there.
Cindy Blackstock is a giant, and we're very lucky to have her in our lives. She's been fighting for such a long time for the rights of children. And as you can see, she was in court. We've been shooting in court in and out for the last several years. This case went on for almost 10 years concerning Jordan's principle. And she never gives up. And I watched, when she was questioned in court, there were times where I was very disturbed and very worried about her. And whoever tries to take away her dignity or try to humiliate her or diminish her cannot do it.
You're here.
She's just so incredible, I tell you. I remember one time I was very disturbed by it, and I remember crying that night, and I thought, oh, it was so difficult to watch. And the next day I asked her, I said, Cindy, were you okay last night? I was very worried about you. She said, well, sometimes I get home and I feel bad. But she said, I'm not going to get to their level. They want to treat me like that, then people can watch how they treat me. She's just incredible. So it was very interesting to see the way they were questioning her and really trying to trick her. Man, she's smarter than all of them. Yeah, thank God for her. Any other question? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
It's still the same in terms of when does it end. Like she explains in the film that once they're 16, or if they can go to 21 if they're in school. This is the next fight to make sure, because as she said, when those children turn 21, they're not cured. They still need a lot of help. And this is the next fight to make sure that those children do get help to the end. And I think it's going to happen for sure. Yeah, there is a difference. And I think it's well explained in the film. For instance, if you live on the reserve, then there's problems. You have to move off the reserve to get the equal services, or you have to give your child to become the ward of government. And like Cindy explained, when this happens, when some people are so hopeless at times, they do that and then feel sorry about it. And they have 6 months, that in 6 months' time they didn't figure out how to get back their children, then it's finished. They're given away and adopted legally by other families, and that's it. There's a lot of children that have disappeared that way. If the person is 16, it ends if that person is not in school. It ends at 16 years old. It'll go up to 21 if the child is schooled somewhere, and then that's it. And I think a lot of it has been so difficult. I think in general, Canadians had no clue of what the real history of this country is about our people. And for many generations in the classroom, there were books that were officially there to teach children about the history of this country. And imagine if you are an indigenous person, you're sitting in the classroom, and when the teacher opens the history book, you know that they, in my case, I was once young, and this is what I went through. I knew I was going to get beat up that day. Why? Because in those books, officially written by the church, were teaching other children, or Canadians in this country, that we were savages, that we went around scalping the poor white man who came here, that we were ignorant. I heard so many times that my language was Satan's language. Not allowed to speak your language, and in a lot, especially in the residential school and other school, you would get punished if you were caught speaking your language. And this went on for a very long time, and I think what they had in mind, obviously it was designed to create hate towards our people, and it managed to do it very well, I can tell you that. But what I can say to you, I am 87 years old. I have seen many changes. And what's happening now, I would say since the last 5-10 years, is very, very different than whatever has happened before. You have to think of the law and the Indian Act that has controlled our people for such a long time, through the government and through the churches. And when you're in it, you don't understand what's happening. You're constantly trying to live one day, day by day. You get beat up. You're told you should be invisible. You're ugly. You're dirty. Look at your skin. You're not white. You're dirty. This is the way I went through what I went through, and this is the reason why I'm standing here on this land here tonight. Those are the reasons. Because I didn't want other children to go through the same kind of thing that I went through. And children, for me, and I'm sure for all of you here, is really the heart of our life. I'll do anything for children. And us, we're taller, we're bigger as human beings. When something is not right, children are badly treated, it is our duty to get up and make sure that it changes. And this is why things are happening. We have people all across this country. I'll tell you where the difference is. 10 years ago, whenever I complain about something, these Indians are always complaining. They're lazy. They don't work. They don't pay tax. And that's it. And this is the way the Canadians were told and thought about our people, that this is what we were. And we should be invisible. Meanwhile, they could take the land, they could control the natural resources, they could take everything from us and telling us how small we were. Well, now as I travel across this country constantly, and there is an ear that was never there before. I think that Canadians in general wants to see justice to our people. And there are good people everywhere in the country. And when things go wrong, something is bad, even on TV, you see, you think there's always somebody that's great and good and will come and make a difference and try to make it right, whether it's politically or that, no matter what the reason is. And man, I feel so rich because I live to see the big difference. And now, you know, our people, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have judges, name it, any discipline, some of our people are there as professional. It was not before 1951 that we were allowed to enter university to be educated. Why? Because we were not Canadian citizens. And in 1951, there was the first time there was a paragraph that was changed in the Indian Act where an indigenous person could go to university without denying his race or her race. And that made a difference, and also those things that were against the law to have powwows, to have ceremonies, potlatches, then changed. And that's when, by the time 1960, first year we are recognized as Canadian citizens in our own country. And then 1960, many, many things happened all around the world that were incredible and also for us. And it was the first time that the government told our people, now you can write to Indian Affairs, there was a special department, and you should identify your land. Where is your territory? What's your territory? And this, since then, there's many things that's happened where the Canadian government tries to redo the treaties. In some cases, it has success, and in some, no. And in many places, there's no treaty with the crown, with the king and the queen, Victoria, all that time. There's 11 treaties like that, mainly out west, BC and Ontario, none in Quebec. So it's very interesting when you look at the attitude or the mind of the people who came here at first. The Europeans came, and they thought we were very different than them and not human. In the case of Quebec, it's the French that came first. So there's no treaty of that time in the Quebec province. Why? Because the French, when they came, they had an attitude that these savages, we conquered them, it's our country now. It's French Canada. No treaties. They didn't feel they had to make any treaties because it became their country. Then the English came. The English came, they said, oh, we better make treaties with these people because as time goes by, they're going to revenge themselves when they see that we've taken their land. And a lot of these treaties are full of lies because they didn't explain what the real treaty was to the people. And just to get them to make a sign that they agree, so they didn't say you're surrendering your land, you're surrendering all your rights. They didn't say that. They said, we're going to help you with your education, there'll be a medicine cabinet, with health services. And look at where we are now and how much our people have had to go to court to get some of these promises they made. But now, I think, in general, Canadians are getting to know what it was all like, and I think we have friends everywhere in this country, and I think Canadians want to see justice to our people, and they're helping in many ways that they can. And thank God for this, and I say thank you to all of you.
Can you tell us any updates about Jordan's family and siblings and how they're doing?
It's been very devastating for the family. I don't feel I have a right to start saying intimate things. It's a very large family. And as you can see in the film, when the mother kept going to Winnipeg to stay with Jordan, the other children missed her, and it became very devastating to the family. And over the years, they've lost there's one sister that died, and it's been very, very difficult. And also for Ernest, the father, as you can see a bit. By the time the end of the film, he looks so sick, and I'm just been very worried about him. So they're looking at the film. I think it was this evening, but first only the family alone, so that they can feel all this on their own, and then they're going to show the film itself on the October 22nd, because October 22nd is Jordan's birthday. And every year they have special ceremonies and special things happening there. And then they're also going to show it in the school for adults and for young people, and I'll be there then. But I prefer to leave their lives private, but I can just tell you that the sadness and the difficulties has been very, very bad for the family. And imagine she passed away 6 months after Jordan passed away. So as a child, how do you live with that? So just imagine. It's difficult in every aspect of life. But they're very generous and very beautiful people. And when they're singing all together, I thought it was important to see them doing that, because at that time and previously, the family would go into the church and they sing hymns. This is a hymn that they're singing, a Cree hymn there. And the love that they have for the family is very high, but very, very difficult to survive this terrible time.
You're working full time now, is that correct? Like,
I've been working full time since I'm 9 years old.
that's what I know about you. So what's up next for you? Like, what are you working on currently? Besides
I don't tell all my secrets. But you can be sure that I'm working. But the big thing now that I have to do, starting when I get back to Montreal, is that the film board is making a box set of the 7 last film I made. And yes. They're all connected, you know. Like I started working on Jordan in 2011, and I watched and documented everything that happened. And but I could never finish the film until what's happened now. What a miracle! I tell you, it was really special. And at first, I went to James Bay because of Shannon Kustashin, who was doing a campaign to build a school in her community. Started there for this series, and while I was there was a crisis on housing. So I moved I stopped working on the school, and I did a film on, the first one was The People of the Katawapiskak River. And the second film is Hi Ho, Mr. Hay. It's about the school, the campaign to build a school, which was really run by young people, by children, really. It's just an incredible story. And then the third one, there's Trick or Treaty, which is very good for teaching. My Trick or Treaty tells you a lot, eh? And everything I make, I think of educating. And so Trick or Treaty, especially it concentrates on Treaty Number 9, which was done in the James Bay area and part of Manitoba. So there, through that, one can learn, you know, like for years you say, oh, that's Treaty Number 6. This is it. People say, don't talk about that. It doesn't mean anything. That's finished. Don't talk about that. Well, it's so wrong, because to this day, the treaties really are influencing people's life in every day. And whether your rights are not recognized, or you know, it's just awful. And that, and the Indian Act has continued to separate people. You know, in the 1600, I was reading, I don't know if it's 1660 or 1680. The first Europeans that came here, somebody, I think a missionary wrote, "These savages love their children too much." And you know, in the past, the custom, when a child was born, the child was inseparable with the mother for at least until 4 or 5 years old. Everything she did, she had the child carrying the child on her back or in the front. Always the child was with the mother. And when they saw this is when they said, this is too much love towards these children. What we have to do is separate the children from the parents, and that way we will control them. We're talking about the 1600 now, and haven't changed all this time. Still trying to separate the children from the parents. But now, we see them coming.
I think we have time for one more question. Sorry.
Hi.
Yeah.
Just going back to the, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, the other filmmaker.
Charlene.
Charlene, and thank you both. What are your thoughts on the outcomes of the inquiry, national inquiry? This is the murder of Indigenous women. It was acknowledged that this was cultural genocide, but do you see anything as hopeful as what has come from those people coming from this inquiry?
It was good that it happened, and I think that it's been very therapeutic for a lot of families to be heard and to be able to tell their stories, and it helped a lot in that way and in bringing these things forward. But I think we always knew what the problems were, and now it's time that action needs to be happening, and there needs to be more done systemically, because it's not an individual problem, it's a systemic problem. And until those changes happen, we're not going to see a lot of changes. And Alanis mentioned the other day, yesterday, that we're forgetting about our boys and our men. And I think that needs to be addressed as well. And nothing really is going to change until we address all these issues of Indigenous peoples being treated as lower class citizens, not getting the same rights as other people in Canada.
Thank you everybody so much for coming out, and enjoy the rest of it.